Hello and welcome to Skeindeer Knits. My name is Ellie and I am a Norwegian living and knitting in London. And you can find me on Instagram as Skeindeer and I'm Skeindeer Knits as a designer on Ravelry. Hi. I don't know how to begin this video. It's been a very long time, but as ever, I think it's probably best to just tell new viewers what on earth they have stumbled upon. You have stumbled upon my little knitting talk show where I normally sit and talk about knitting once a week. Talking about what I have knitted, what I have finished, what I have designs, my new patterns, things I, indulging by. But I haven't done that in a very long time. So this is a little bit of a, I guess, of a Skeindeer Knits subscribers service where I just kind of felt like, because I can, I want to pop by and just give you guys a little update. I don't think it's, the show notes today are short, so I'm gonna try to speak slowly. How y'all doing? I will get to live stuff at the end of this. I think we're just gonna talk about knitting to begin with, and yeah, I'm still running the Skeindeer Knits sweater KAL. Is that what we call it? No, Skeindeer Garment KAL of 2020. It's running on Ravelry and it's running on Instagram and it's just running all over the place, and I am loving it. It's really kept me going during my hiatus to just see all the garments that you guys have made. There's still really lots of time to take part. The deadline is on New Year's Eve, so I think you're good. You can still join and you can join as many times as you want. The only criteria is really making a minimum of one of my garment designs, be it a cardigan, a sweater, or that one skirt pattern of mine. And there are more to come. Oh my god, guys, I have so many garments in the works. Again, I think I'm going to talk about that at the end of the section. So if I remember, I didn't put that in my notes, so who knows when I remember half an hour from now. Can't talk. And we're also going to hope that I can record this on a Sunday evening without disruptions, because you don't know, really, during lockdown I don't get as much alone time as I used to, and I have missed that. And I understand that's probably a very nice problem to have given the situation globally, so I appreciate that. Anyway, what have I been knitting? What have you been knitting? I've been knitting, like I said, on a lot of designs. So because I have been working on designs, there's a very short list of things that I actually can show you, but I will show you those things. One of the works in progress I will actually await until acquisitions, if that makes sense. Also, I don't know if you can hear the ice cream truck, but yeah, it's Sunday, so okay. So I cast on a sleeve the other day. I say a sleeve, it is true that I cast on a sleeve, but it's the sleeve of a pattern called Sleeve Island, because it's just one sleeve, that's the entire pattern. So for reference, I've actually printed out the photos so we can just, it is this particular pattern. Yes, professional, overlay on the, I'm not going to edit this very well, so print out might be helpful there. This is the pattern that I am knitting. It is Sleeve Island because you're knitting it from sleeve to sleeve. I don't make a habit of printing out like full-on ink photos, but for this one I couldn't help myself. So this is it. This is a Kate Davies pattern. You cast on that one sleeve, I'm not sure which one, and you knit, 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 knit. And you've got some steeks for the neck opening and a steek for the body, and you just knit across sideways. You've increased for that sleeve, but you will decrease for that sleeve, and then you bind up at the other sleeve. It is one giant sleeve. I am so intrigued by this construction method. Nobody's surprised that I'm intrigued by construction methods that are a little bit out of the norm. And just for anyone, regular viewer, can tell that this is very much my aesthetic. Shades of grey with a pop of red. I mean, I didn't plan this. I'm also wearing a red skirt, so it's not going to be hard for me to work this into my wardrobe. It really isn't. So I think it was during lockdown that I indulged in a kit. So I'm actually knitting with the recommended yarn. Miller, it's Scottish. It's a tweed yarn. Let's spell it. M-I-L-A-R-R-O-C-H-Y. Tweed. to 70% wool, 30% mohair, has about 100 meters per 25 gram ball. So it's really easy to calculate the meterage, which I appreciate. And these are the 3 colors that you use. You don't use a whole lot of the kind of burnt red, I want to call it. And these 2 greys, and this is the reason why I didn't just stash dive into some of my Holst cones, because I was very particular about the contrast of greys that I wanted for this. So I wanted it to look exactly like the photo, and these 2 greys, while they may appear to be very high contrast, they're not, because this one has got tweeds from that one, and this one has got tweeds from that one. Right, so the sleeve that I got so far, it is very low contrast. The pattern is sort of disappearing a little bit in the tweeds, and I am here for it. You know, a lot of the times in colour work advice, we say, careful with the contrast. You know, you want to have high contrast if you want to have high contrast, but it's not a rule that you have to have high contrast. Sometimes you want something a little bit more subtle, and I'm here for that, if I didn't say that already. I'm probably going to have to redo the I-cord out on the cuff because it's funneling out quite a bit, if you can see that. I don't apologise that I'm using one of my lesser lenses because it can film a little bit closer, otherwise my tripod would have to stand on my bed. So it's not very good at focusing this one, but what can you do really? So yeah, it's not a lot, but it's also not very long since I cast this one on, so I'm pretty pleased with my progress. It's also really fun because you increase at a very rapid rate, so you're not working with that very small stitch count for the cuff for a very long time. So I've already worked myself up to short circulars instead of magic loop, and I don't think it's going to be long until I'm working on longer circulars, because you just increase that fast. So you get these kind of dolman sleeves, would you call it that? Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I am not entirely sure whether I'm increasing according to pattern. The pattern gives you very specific detailed instructions on how to, you know, establish this sort of increased rate so that you're filling in the pattern. And I may have just read too much into it and feel like, no, it's all wrong, but I don't. I just think the pattern's just being really helpful, and I maybe didn't need that, so I was just like, ah, you know, when you can't find the words. So yeah, I think it's gonna be fine. I can't imagine why it wouldn't work, even if I'm off one stitch or whatever happened. I'm not sure, but I'm really enjoying it. Would recommend. Probably not the fastest knit, but there is something about stripes, guys. You just want to finish one stripe and you get to the next and you get to the next, and that's probably going to keep me going, because yeah, this is the same yarn, the same designer, and the same gauge as the Selbumønster, is that the name? The yoke pattern of Kate Davies. I've got it here. This one. I'm also working on this one, and it's taking me a long while because it is fine yarn, tight gauge for me, you know, not probably universally. But when it's got stripes, it just feels so much faster. Can't really explain it, but yeah. So anyway, I said I was going to speak slower so we can, you know, drag things out, because I really only have one more work in progress, or technically two, to show you guys. So without further ado, this one I picked up more sort of recently. I've been really tired this weekend. Can't really explain it. I think we're just dealing with some kind of low barometric pressure, and I'm just like on my bed the whole day, feeling just really tired, maybe having a headache, because I'm not entirely sure what headaches are. Don't. So I needed stockinette, and I remember that this project of mine had a lot of stockinette to go, so I've just zoomed through a lot of stockinette the past couple of days while watching like Agent Carter and The Parent Trap, and just, you know, yeah, so that's been happening here. Now, just to recap this particular project, because you may remember that I decided to cast on the Marius. Now the Marius is kind of not just one pattern, but it's a design that works across many patterns from Norway. It was originally designed by Untitled Chapter, something I talked about a lot on this podcast, but basically is just this chart, and it can be put on a lot of different designs. And in fact, I happen to have 2 books completely dedicated to this pattern. We can have it on all kinds of sweaters, all kinds of yarn thicknesses and ages and genders and. So instead of choosing any of these, you know, probably 50 to 100 Marius patterns that I have, I decided to wing it and do something entirely different, because none of these Mariuses are top down. They are all bottom up. And no, I'm joking. I also do like bottom up, but I have done my fair share of bottom up Mariuses in my days. I got that grey cardigan, I got that cotton sweater, I got that fine merino sweater. I made that grey one for my sister as well, and then I got my dad's, which, I mean, I didn't make it, but I've got it. I've got the dress. I made so many Marius things. So I decided to superimpose the Marius pattern on my Eyelander pattern. I chose the easier version without the short rows, because I actually did do the short rows first and it just looked weird with a lot of red on the shoulders. So this one doesn't have short rows, so it's got more of that classic box shape that the Marius usually have. And as you may remember, I didn't do any neck shaping. I just did a boat neck, a very small one, kind of like the one you see in Utra, but which is another pattern of mine. I didn't do the short row shaping, so you don't get the neckline shaping, which makes it just an open slit for the neck, and it's not a very big one either. So, by the way, this is a store-bought sweater, in case anyone's going to ask me about that. It's not knitted. I was going to see if I just wanted to keep that little small boat neck, but knowing myself, I probably wasn't going to want that. So I decided to cut out the neckline. So instead of shaping it with my knitting, I just shaped it later. So I have some photos. I'm going to try to just overlay them as I'm talking about this, because this was not hard. I basically knew that I had 48 stitches for the back. That would also be the case for the front. I just tend to have half of that stitch count for the front bind off or cast on, whatever, right? So that will be 24. So I put 12 stitches on each side of the front cardigan steek on a yellow thread. I also took gradually 12 stitches on each side and put those on a yellow thread. And I did something sort of similar on the back, but different, because you just want to lower the back a little bit. And once I did that, I hooked all those stitches that I had on that yellow thread onto my needles and started knitting with blue thread. And as I had done a couple of rounds, I just started to cut out the fabric that was just excessive. I did secure anything row-wise, so you know, if it's that didn't make any sense. So basically, wherever I had picked up stitches, I could just remove everything, right? Because these stitches are now hooked onto the rib. But for anything along the sides, I actually did the crochet reinforcement. I have a lot of opinions about whether it's reinforcing, but I just feel a little bit safer while doing it, and that's what counts. But I probably wouldn't have had to, and it did add a little bit of bulk inside this folded neckline that is now concealing all of it. So that was pretty fun. I've never tried that before, but I've always known how to do it in theory. And obviously when you're using that yellow thread or whatever contrast yarn that you have, you can test the neckline. Because I did an earlier version where I'd done it a little bit higher up and it looked a bit funny. So I could just pull it out and try again and see until I had a shape that I liked. I also happen to have the bits that I cut out in case you just want to see it and see how well it's holding up. This is the bit for one side of the back neck. This is for the other side. Clearly I didn't quite split it in half correct, like symmetrically. I did the same thing for the front. This is one side. You see here, see how well that's holding up. This yarn is beautiful. So I'm working with Usk by Hillesvåg, which is one of my favorite yarns. It's a little bit thicker than my usual Finul. Gosh, here we are. I'll just give you a proper close-up. Even though the zoom on this camera is not the best. I mean the lens, my camera's awesome. So yeah, the other one looks the same, obviously. You can see how well this yarn is holding up, but it's not fraying, it's not going anywhere. So you know, that crochet method might be redundant, quite frankly. There's no... This is actually the steek for the front of the cart. Wow. This is the steek for the front of the cardigan. You can see how well it's holding up without any crochet reinforcement. I really don't think the crochet reinforcement is all that necessary, as long as you tack this down or hide it, or like do something where you're really just not going to be like, you know, tempted to fiddle with it or whatever. And I did that by just hiding it in this double folded neckline. And I sewed that down this morning, and look at that nice little neckline right there. Just right. I am really pleased with it. Definitely going to do this again. Probably not going to put that in my patterns. I think people feel a lot better if they are told exactly how to shape the neckline. So I'll keep doing it in a planned, you know, clear, easy to follow, hand-holdy way. But when I knit stuff for myself, I like to go rogue and just like, you know, take to the scissors and have at it. So yeah, I have also cut out the steeks for the armholes, just because why not? Here I did use the crochet method, and as you can see, it's really just not that different. You're just kind of just introducing a little bit of bulk, but I still like it, but it's cool if you don't. I've also started to pick up for the armhole here. Yes, bright red, because you want to have the same kind of chart on the sleeve. I'm just going to cut out this big one here, I think that's what I'm going to do. So I want the sleeves to be big, and there's like a lot of stitches on here right now, so I'm hoping they're going to be quite roomy. Yeah, I was toying with the idea of doing some bell sleeves or something, to just like not decrease a lot for the sleeves at all, and then just doing it just for the cuff. I kind of like the idea. It's going to give it a very different look. And I also thought about doing the rib for the rest of the body, maybe a bit long or maybe a bit short, I don't know. I want to go like either or, like either very long or like very short. A long rib would go really well with the bell sleeves though. I don't know. But I have really enjoyed this the past couple of days. It was exactly what I needed. I had a lot of thinking patterns, a lot of charted stuff, a lot of stuff that I'm designing that I obviously have to make sure is accurate. But this one I'm just winging. Doesn't just, you know, it's fun. It's really fun. And in case anyone's wondering, no, unfortunately I cannot make this into a pattern for sale. Normally, you know, Norwegian knitting tradition is public domain. It is our heritage, you know, anyone can make their own version of it, do their own take, right? But the Maris pattern is, I believe, trademarked and belongs to a particular company, where some yarn companies are allowed to produce knitting patterns from it. Some other yarn companies are allowed to produce knitted, you know, machine knitted items for sale. So this is all just for fun. If anyone wants to do this, you could just get like the Eyelander pattern and just do what I did. The chart is easy to find. I can definitely recommend playing around with this whole neckline shaping thing. That was a hoot. So, oh, my vocabulary is struggling, but yeah. Oh, I love the look of the Marias. I know if I lived in Norway, which I haven't done for nearly a decade, if I lived in Norway, I'd be cringing hard, because this pattern is everywhere in Norway and I would be so sick of it. But I am not sick of it because I'm not in Norway and I kind of miss it sometimes. And honestly, guys, I'm fine with it, by the way, but this is the longest I have gone without going to Norway, ever. My last record was last year, because I went to Norway for my granddad's funeral in February and I returned to Norway, I think in September. I went to Oslo, which is not my hometown, but I went there. Now I haven't been to Norway since early January after New Year's, and September is just around the corner, so and I don't know when I'm gonna go next. I actually don't know, so that's interesting. So I need a bit of nostalgia knitting, you know, that's just that really. But yeah, if I didn't mention it, using full on Ask by Hillesvåg. I also want to mention, by the way, I thought this yarn was impossible to get hold of anywhere in Europe outside of Norway. I was wrong. You can get this yarn from Trollenwool in the Netherlands, and I am so happy. This has calmed my nerves. I I love this yarn. I hoard it when I go home, and I'm really glad that I don't have to do that, because I could just order it from the Netherlands, which is going to be, you know, fine while we're still in the EU. So I'll enjoy it while it lasts. This whole talking slowly thing just to make this episode last longer, it's not really working out for me. So we are now going to move swiftly along into acquisitions. I have got, I don't know that there's any yarn to show, which I was just going through my kind of stash entries on Ravelry, and just, can we have a pat Ellie on the back moment for a bit here, because I have bought very little yarn this year. Obviously we can thank lockdown for this, because I haven't been tempted by yarn by going to yarn shops and to yarn shows and festivals and trips to Norway and anywhere else, you know. That's usually when I give in. So there's very little on the yarn front to talk about, but there are books, and I've got 2 books that I can remember having bought. It's been a very long time since I recorded, guys, but I'm really pleased with the 2 books that I have bought, so I do want to talk about them. As you can tell, I do have a lot of books. There's another like shelf up there, there's this one, and there's the bottom one, there's some stuff over there. I really love knitting books. Like, that is just yeah, don't get me started. And I finally got my mitts on this book. I want to first talk about the cover situation, because if I just saw this book in the bookshop, I would just kind of think this is just your generic knitting book. Maybe not me, maybe I'm not the target audience, you know. I totally am the target audience, because like, they also have this book in Denmark, obviously it's a Danish book, and in Norway, and there the overall look of the book clearly just screams historical knitting book. This does not scream historical knitting book to me, but it is actually. It's obviously, as the name says, traditional Danish sweaters, 200 star and other classic motifs from historic sweaters. It's a historical knitting book, which I am here for, right? Love that stuff. So I may not quite agree with the whole aesthetic choices for the look of the international English language book. I could have just bought the one in Norwegian, but I didn't want to wait, so just got this one. And it is about Danish star sweaters. Now, I say Danish, we did also have these in Norway, so you might as well call them Danish Norwegian star sweaters, because Norway was under Danish rule and under a great deal of Danish cultural influence. So I mean, as much as, you know, there are still distinct cultures and distinct knitting cultures, there was a lot of cross-pollination with this particular, you know, knitting style. Now I'm going to try to show you without giving away too much of the book, but because this camera has the worst zoom ever, hopefully you can see something here. This is hand knitted. This is hand knitted on needle sizes smaller than I think any one of us have got. It looks woven. It is crazy. This was hand knitted and people wore this stuff. This is, oh, I don't know how far this goes, because it's not right. This says from around the 1500s, and some goes up to like 1600s, there's 1700s. This is across quite a few centuries where these shirts were really, really popular, because they just went with, you know, the style of the days. I honestly wish there was more pages I could show you guys, but unfortunately the photos are awfully small, and I think if I show you more of them, then I'm just going to be giving away too much of the book. And also I think the book is lacking a little bit in illustrations. I have a lot of photos from these particular shirts from my other historical knitting books, so I kind of know what they look like, but this book mostly kind of talks you through the technical aspects of them. And I'm just I'm such a nerd for these things. I am really happy that I found this book, even though I will admit probably to some perhaps a bit niche. It does come with some patterns at the end of it, but they are kind of sort of like one size fits all, which we all know is not a thing. So because of the particular type of motifs that you find on these shirts, they're very big chart repeats, so they're very difficult to grade. So that's often why these recreation patterns only come in one size. And I decided to knit one of these particular designs. Finally, we have a big photo that I can show you. I wanted to make this one in green. I'm doing mine in green as well. I'm sorry it really doesn't show you a lot of detail. Clearly not my size, so I just loosened up my gauge. Basically, I'm going to show you. And this one sleeve here that I have done took one ball of Røma, my favorite go-to yarn, just to kind of show you some of that, just give it a bit of love. This is one of the new heathered greens, and I thought that would be perfect for this particular one because I just fell head over heels in love with the sweater in the book. And while I often kind of feel a bit torn when it comes to like patterns that exclude sizes where they could have been included, if that makes sense, and I wonder, like, should I be knitting them at all? I do think it's fair to make an exception for this kind of book because it isn't a pattern book. It wasn't really ever meant to be an encompassing, you know, whatever, to just showcase some examples of these old historical designs. You know, they weren't graded back then either because everything was handmade and tailored. You know, weren't this sort of you buy one pattern and make it for all the different sizes. So it's sort of true to what it's supposed to represent. And it is also targeted towards, you know, a type of knitter who likes to do a lot of things themselves, you know, with the techniques it offers, with the charts and all that stuff. You could really put things together yourself, and that's kind of the target audience of the book. So that's also what I wanted to do. And that's why I decided I still want to knit this and I want to try to make it work for my size. And I did a lot of calculations to find out if me just loosening up the gauge is going to give me some problems. You know, is the arm side going to be too deep? Is the motif going to be too large lengthwise? And just going by my row gauge, I don't think that's going to be a problem at all. I seem to be getting row gauge better with this looser stitch gauge. So happy times. And yeah, let me just show you. This is the pattern. This is all knits and purls and 1x1 cables. It is quite subtle. You kind of need the light to fall on it in a very precise way to see it. And obviously the yarn being quite heathered doesn't really help it show up, I suppose, but I really like it. Yeah. Look at that. Oh, it's so cool. And this rib, this is just interesting. It's like a twisted rib that shifts. And it looks really cool. Though I will say it took ages. Those twisted stitches are just not... Oof. I think I spent just the longest just on this cuff. And then the rest of the sleeve was just smooth sailing. I really enjoyed it. Couldn't put it down really. But of course, once you've done one sleeve, do you really ever want to do the other, no matter how fun that sleeve was? So no, I have not done the other sleeve yet, but I have blocked this one and then put it in a bag, so it's still kind of folded and weird. But I like it. I am going to do the other one, and then I think, you know, I'm going to be just more encouraged to want to do the body, and the whole thing is just going to come together. And yeah, really excited. I just love the look of it. Hey, that's really all there is to say about that one. Those were truly all my works in progress. That was more than I thought, because I remember that sleeve just last minute. So now for my next acquisition, I want to give a little bit of a background because long-time followers will know that I adore this book. You know, this book. I don't know if I would have been the Skeindeer that I am today if it weren't for this particular amazing book by Bårdsgård. I don't know why I had to look at the book to read that. I know perfectly well who made this book. She's amazing. I am so grateful for her for having made this fantastic book. It's such a great resource. It's such a great history piece, and just really just rounding up all those charts from the local to me Selbumønster region in southern Trøndelag, where I'm from. These mittens are world-renowned. I love them. I think everyone knows that, and this book has been very important to me. And so imagine my excitement when they were announcing a sequel. Right, with just more charts. So I have it. I basically talked a friend of mine into for me to order it to her address so she could post it out to me. I think I paid as much for the postage as I did for the actual book, and a new Norwegian book is like £40 to £50, so Norway. But I am so happy I got it. Worth it. I love it. There's a screaming child outside. Oh joy. Now, it took a long while before that other book got translated. I don't know if this one will be, but if it will be, it probably will take a while. So, you know, butter yourself in with patience, as we say in Norway. Yeah. Anyway, I love this book. You can sort of get a sense of it. you know, Selbumønster does more than just mittens. They are known for the mittens, but obviously that style can be put on a lot of things. Garments, socks. And it has a photo of a Danish star shirt. How about that? So there's another example of those. Like I said, we do those in Norway, so there you go. Okay, this book is a lot of intermixed with charts and actual photography. I'm obviously not going to show off the charts, so I found just one photo just to show you here. I'm trying to hide my face so maybe it will focus. Also, here's an example of some Selbumønster socks. There we go. Oh, just look at that. Look at that. I just love, oh, this just takes me right home. This is just like, oh. And look at her, she's just sitting knitting. It's just such an atmospheric photo. It's so the kind of photos that I have from my own family albums. And obviously it's not for the photos, but it's just that the photos are obviously one of the few things that I feel like I can show you. It is packed full of charts and text and literature, and it's just, again, arguably niche history knitting book that is all that I'm about. I love it. I don't think, I don't know how many words I can find to just say how much I adore this book and how happy I am that it's come out. I'm always like, oh, just you know, just that you know, usual unapologetic enthusiasm that you're used to getting here, basically. So that sums about, I was going to say that sums about all my acquisitions. There is one more acquisitions, but for that I'm going to tidy around here a little bit. So I'm not quite getting into life stuff just yet, but I did have a bit of alone time during lockdown. Both my flatmates went away and I thought, great, I can crank out some stuff on my knitting machine again, because I feel like it's a little bit noisy, it's probably a bit irritating to listen to. And I did, and I've just worked up this like sock that's now just hanging there on half the needles because it dropped off, and I was just getting very frustrated with it, to be honest. So just to recap, about 2 years ago I bought a old Brother knitting machine from the 80s. It is a KH836. It's, you know, a lot of knitting machine enthusiasts swear by it, and I understand it because it's got a lot of the features that you might be looking for if you're a machine knitter. Now I'm primarily a hand knitter, and I realized that the Brother machine, well, great, and I like it, I'm glad I have it, I'm not thinking of getting rid of it. It is made for very fine yarn. It's made for anything you can knit to a 25 stitch gauge and tighter. And I tend to knit anything from a 24 stitch gauge and looser most of the time. So of course that machine is great for doing the knitting that I don't want to do by hand because it's going to be too slow. Makes sense. But I kind of wanted to use the machine to get through some like stockinette when I'm not feeling it. Things like that. And so I had been looking for a mid-gauge machine, and now there is this really popular one by Silver Reed that costs a leg and an arm. So you know, it's not actually that expensive, but for me it is. Like, it's like £400 maybe. And for me that's just not in the budget. So imagine my delight when I saw someone, you know, a Friday night post on a knitting machine group that I'm part of on Facebook that they were selling their Silver Reed. It's a Silver Reed LK 150, and they were selling it for like a lot less, but it was almost brand new. I'm guessing this is maybe an art student who used it for 1 year and then got rid of it, and it's like, it's great. It's not really lacking much. There's no damage on it. Yeah, so twist my arm. I just hopped on the tube the next day, and this is the first day I've been on public transport since lockdown was announced, so that was interesting. And I went all the way across London just to pick up this machine. Also, I was knackered by the end of it because I'm not really used to these out and about things anymore. London's quite overwhelming if you're not like kind of climatized to it, which I'm not anymore. But you didn't come here to hear about that. You probably wanted to see this babe. Well, this is the knitting machine. It's made of plastic, so it's a lot lighter. It didn't feel that light when I was carrying it from the tube station up here, but you know, I like it, and it's just, I can just put it on my desk. You know, I've got these things that you just kind of attach it to so it doesn't fall off when you go with the carriage and everything. And yeah, I just kind of wanted to show you. It's just really great. It's in great condition. And I will say, if any of you are curious about getting into knitting machines, I found this one a lot more entry level than my old brother, because I feel like I'm still learning that old thing. I keep emphasizing that it's old. I'm really glad that it is, because it meant that I could get it a lot cheaper. But I find it very difficult to learn. I find it very easy to make mistakes, mistakes that take a long while to rectify. This one, I think, is a lot more entry level. I could see machine knitting coming back into fashion with this one, because it was just so easy to get the hang of. I didn't need to read instructions, obviously, because I know how to work a machine. The other one, this was just not difficult at all. I did also manage to teach it to a friend. She took to it really easily, and then ended up buying the other one. So yeah, I really like it, if I didn't say that already. There are downsides to getting these sorts of plastic machines. You can't attach a facing bed to it. So this is the bed of needles. You can see them poking out here, right? If you have a facing bed, that gives you the potential of working the round. It's sort of like you have a magic loop set up, if you will, with working one side and then you work back the other. It can't do that. And that means that it also can't do rib, because that's what those facing beds are for. That's why they're called ribbers. So it doesn't do rib, it doesn't do in the round. It also doesn't read punch cards, and punch cards are for color work. So if I want to do color work, I have to adjust these needles manually. So contrast colors have to go on this mid position here. And I have to do that before every row, or yeah. So, but I want to try that. I'm very interested to try that. I have a design that I'm both doing as a cardigan version and as a sweater version, and I kind of, after having done the cardigan version, I'm just feeling like maybe I could do the sweater on the machine, because I'm already doing it once. But I can't do the rib on the machine though, so you know, assembly and rib and all that stuff is still going to be done by hand. But that's something I want to really have a go at. I also want to try to make the new Weekender by Andrew Mowry, because she did a lighter one that's obviously a bit slower than the worsted standard Weekender sweater. So that's something I've been thinking about. I was actually kind of ready to go, but it's the other machine that can do rib. So if I was going to do the rib, I would have to do it on that and then find some clever way of transferring the stitches onto here, which I'm not sure how to do without causing a big fuss. So I might do the rib by hand, I'm not sure. But like everything the Weekender is, I could do on a machine, which is pretty cool, because I don't feel like I'm that good at machines. But that's just okay. And also here's the carriage. You just take this thing and you just across. Everything is just so much lighter than the other one, which is just like blowing my mind, because the other one is mechanical. Don't know how much you guys know about knitting machines. I'm still learning, obviously, but a lot of people think of them as like automatized knitting. They're really not. They are kind of like engineering pieces. I feel like I'm just like some kind of mechanic basically when I'm like working with them. Like I got my machine oil and I got these little cloths and I'm like wiping everything down with them. But it's very manual labor and it's quite exhausting, and I've actually pulled muscles using it. So nothing else dramatic about it. It's just that you can make one row in one gesture, but there's just a lot of other stuff you have to do to just make that ready to go, and it's like a whole story that we don't want to get into today. But yes, I am really happy that I got this machine. I do wish I could do ribbon knit in the round, but sadly that's just not the case. There are no bits you can buy to do that. What is good about it is that it is currently in production, so you could easily get one. I imagine probably there's more support around it. I have found a lot of great tutorials for it. I see how we can pretty much do any range of yarn, and the cool thing is, because I've done a swatch, like I've done like a long swatch where I've just changed the tension setting for every like couple of rows, and I've seen the ranges of gauges that it can do, and it really picks up where the other one stops and can do anything from a 25 stitch gauge and looser, and all the way up to chunky weight yarn, which is great. So yeah, I look forward to experimenting more on that machine in the future. clearly I've been able to waffle on quite a bit, so this is probably going to be a normal length episode after all, but I do want to finish off this episode with some live stuff. So it's nothing to do with knitting, so if you just came here for the knitting, that is concluded. So this is, I guess, for those of you who have wondered, where have I been? You haven't wondered, you know where I've been. This is no big secret. I have been doing this podcast and Skeindeer Knits and this little company of mine that I accidentally started by doing this podcast for 4 years. Exactly 4 years, exactly, which is crazy. I started in September of 2016 and here we are, I'm still doing it. I promise. I've just, for this whole duration and 2 years prior to that, I've been working on a PhD. And I'm still working on the PhD, don't get too excited now. But what I have done is finish the thesis. Yeah. Now again, don't get too excited. Stay away from the keyboard. I have finished writing it. It is not done. Nothing here is done. I could still fail for all we know. What I have done is written more than 60,000 words of dense academic text on decision making, behavioral economics, delayed gratification, procrastination, all the irony, and sent it off to my supervisors. And now, is everyone going to do construction work right now? Is that what we're doing? Great, okay. And I sent it off to my supervisors, and I'm just waiting to hear back from them. And when they tell me everything that is terribly wrong with it, I will then have to spend a lot of time fixing it and then submit by the end of September. Now don't get too excited, that doesn't mean that I am done still. Oh no, I can still fail. There are still all these pitfalls. What you're gonna do after you've submitted is wait and wait and wait until the day comes that you get to defend the work that you've been doing and avoiding doing for 6 years. It should have been 4. But I did it for 6 because of mental health and shenanigans, and life happened, so I persevered and it paid off. Should have probably taken 2 years break instead of just pushing it forward, but here we are, hindsight. Yeah. So when I get to defend it, what's going to happen then? Well, it's kind of like a full day oral exam where you talk about what you've done and try to come across as you know what you're talking about, and obviously just give evidence that you were the one who wrote the thesis. They ask you questions, you get an examiner from your university and one from outside university, and your supervisor's there to support you. But they don't say anything, so I don't know if he's just gonna sit there trying to communicate non-verbally what I should say. I don't know how that's gonna work out. I'm terrified about this day. I don't want to do it. But that doesn't mean I will be done when that happens either. No. What's gonna happen then is that they will tell me how wrong it is. Usually in Norway, you're presented on a podium and they will congratulations, doctor. But in the UK, you just do it with these examiners and they will tell you whether you get minor or major revisions. Very few people get no revisions. So I don't expect to get no revisions, although it does happen. I've heard it happen. I know some people it happened to. So then I will get a set amount of time to make those fixes. And once I've done that, I submit it and then I pass and become Dr. Skeindeer. And I will probably graduate next summer. So yeah, that's basically where that's at. And I'm just really pleased that I finished the thesis. I have written so much. I've spent so much time writing this damn thing. It is so boring. And to be honest, I've been avoiding talking about it because I've been avoiding working on it, because I've been procrastinating, because I've had a lot of imposter syndrome, I've had a lot of doubts about it. It is weird because I have a lot of confidence issues that I don't really talk about on here a lot. But one of the few things that I'm actually that I don't have doubts about is that I am intelligent. I know I am intelligent. You may not think it, but I swear, why is this construction work happening now? And even so, I have just felt like I am not the right person to be doing a PhD. I can't do it. I don't know the right things. I'm not I've just had all these things. I don't get it. I don't understand it. It's a whole thing. I'm probably doing it all wrong because I've never done a PhD before anyone doing a PhD has. I mean, some do several, but generally it's completely unfounded anxiety, but there you go. That's been the case, and I'm therefore even more pleased that I have finished it. And that is why I'm now taking a moment to record for you guys, because I do, even though my brain is scrambled eggs, I didn't plan this. I am not really, like, I'm a bit out of practice. There's clearly obviously a lot of knitting that I cannot show you yet, but, and I also say things like cannot because I've been writing academic, and you can't say things like can't, so yeah, where was that sentence going? I don't know. How y'all been? Obviously this means that this is just an intermission kind of thing. I'll have to get back to the thesis when I get my feedback, and then I'll have to be busy again until I submit by the end of September. Hopefully after then I can devote a bit more time on doing this. Hopefully I'll also have a little bit more peace and quiet then, because there's a little bit of change happening in this flat share. So yeah, I will of course also have to spend a lot of time writing up my academic papers, because I haven't done that either, so there's that. But that's basically what's happening here on Skeindeer Knits. We are gonna just return with a bang with, you know, lots of garment patterns. I'm saying a lot, we're probably talking 10. I'm gonna try to spread them out. There are obviously a couple of them I haven't even cast on, so we're looking at, you know, evenly distributed from October onwards to the end of winter, if not spring, right? So it's not going to be that many, but I'm looking at like 5 ready to go garments just hang over my chair right now. Like, I don't know what I was thinking. Probably didn't need that many. But obviously, as I have been writing a lot, I have been wanting to knit as well. So whenever I have a break, and every evening, during every evening, I knit. So, and obviously my patterns I don't think are hard to follow, especially because I wrote them, so I feel like I can rest my brain when I knit my own patterns, and it's just really kept me going, honestly, just producing these garments at night and writing during the day, or vice versa, because I'm really not that organized. Who are we trying to kid here? So that's basically why I'm clapping like a seal. That's all I have to say. Clearly I still need a break and just air out my brain, and just, yeah, take a couple of days before I get the feedback and get back into writing. Not really looking forward to it, but there is an end in sight, which I didn't think, honestly, for the most of my PhD, I didn't think that would happen. Last year I didn't think it would happen, and now it's like really close and it's really exciting, and I'm very excited about what to do with Skeindeer Knits after this, because I've got a lot of plans. But without further ado, is that how you finish off a podcast? It's probably not. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll try to get back in not too long, but really thank you for your patience. Obviously the best way to know when I return is just to subscribe. Also, that helps my channel. I don't ever really say that, but I probably should say it more often, because it's really helpful. Also, I can see it when you comment on my little personal dashboard. It's like says a little icon next to your names, and I can like see you that you're subscribed, and it's really nice, and I will try to reply to you, especially if you have that icon, obviously, but in general also. So yeah, hope you're all doing well, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.